Welcome to this special program where we are going to talk about a topic that I think is crucial. It is crucial because we are going to get into the black box of globalism, and globalism is a word that has certainly caught on not too long ago. Sometimes it is difficult for people to define it. I think the most concrete way to define it, the word globalism, is we can say that globalism is a political model that is affecting, as its name suggests, the entire globe, and that has the effect of generating a session of sovereignty that goes from the nation state to the international organizations. These international organizations begin to govern the future of each nation. That is why we are beginning to leave behind the old model of nation-state as the political center. Today, the center of the political begins to appear progressively elsewhere, in black boxes, which are international organizations whose bureaucracies nobody knows. We do not elect them, our people do not control them. But these bureaucracies generate resolutions, they even generate legal effects on our states, and therefore end up conditioning our lives. When you talk about a black box, you are trying to allude to something to which you do not have access, something that you don't really know what is going on inside of it. But that generates a result. The black box generates a result, but we don't know how or how this works. Inside the black box, international organizations in a certain way work that way, because the ordinary citizen has no control over them. And in that sense, they are not democratic solutions, they are not republican solutions, and they are not representative institutions. In this series of videos, we are going to get inside that black box. We are going to see nothing less than how they are, how certain human rights organizations that exert tremendous political and legal pressure on the nations of America are financed. For that, I have a luxury guest besides his Sebastian Schuve. He presides over the Global Center for Human Rights in Washington, D.C., and his organization has done an investigation precisely on that black box, globalism, which I am talking about right now, where they have discovered interesting irregularities in the sense of where the funds that fill the coffers of human rights organizations come from international organizations that ultimately affect the life of the nations of America. Sebastian, welcome to the channel, and well, thanks for being on the other side. Sebastian is speaking now. Thank you very much, Augustine, for the invitation. I love the black box thing. I've never heard of a concept like it, and it's amazing. I have been doing this for 8 years, of which the last 4 years are full-time in Washington, D.C. And I always knew how anyone who has some basic knowledge of politics always knew that many things were decided in international organizations. But when I came here and was in those negotiations and got involved in those meetings, I couldn't believe it. That is, I can affirm that absolutely all language is designed in these organizations. Absolutely, each and every one of the concepts of gender, intersectionality, sexual and reproductive health, all concepts that come to our countries as novelties such as laws, are designed and discussed in these bodies. That's why it's so relevant, and I like the black box, because it's something that you don't know what happens, but it has a record of what's going on inside that nobody can see. Augustine says, look, I do these introductions as an improvisation. I never really know what I'm going to say, but I just remember systems theory. I studied systems theory for 3 years. When we saw systems theory, it was a concept that came from there. In other words, computer science, nothing to do with it, but I think it applies to the black box as a machine, where I don't know how it works, but it works. And here we are going to talk about certain international organizations. We are not going to talk about all of them. We are going to give a very specific information, and for that we are going to delimit. What international organizations have you been investigating in their financing? What are we going to talk about? Sebastian. Well, we work with the United Nations uh, and the Organization of American States, OAS, but 90 or 95% of our work goes to the OAS.
Bueno, nosotros trabajamos con ONU y con OEA, pero el 90 o 95% de
And
nuestro,
that is the
nuestro
reason
trabajo
why
se
we are in
vuelca a la
Washington,
OEA.
where it
Porque
is the
esa es
main
la razón por la
headquarters
cual nosotros estamos en Washington,
of the
donde es la
OAS
sede
and the
principal de
CHR,
la OEA y de la
and not
CDH,
in New
y
York.
no en Nueva
This is
York.
basically
Esto
for
es
two reasons. Point
básicamente
number
por
one,
dos
very
razones.
important. The United Nations
Punto número
contains
uno,
all the countries, and the UN, there
la
are
ONU
the
contiene
Arab
a todos los
countries,
países.
there is
En la
Russia,
ONU
and there is China. So since the
los países
resolutions
árabes
and the
está
things that
Rusia
the United
y
Nations
está China.
puts out are
Entonces,
by
como
consensus
las
and by
resoluciones
agreement,
y las
that
cosas que
constitutes
saca
a
la
block
ONU son
and
por
a natural limit
consensos y por
to most
acuerdos,
of this
eso
agenda.
constituye un
I'm not
bloque
saying that the UN doesn't bring
multinatural
out
a la
all
mayoría de
the
esta
bad
agenda.
things, but
No
the
digo
vast
que la ONU lo
majority
saca
is
todas
through
cosas
its
malas,
bureaucracy. Its
pero la
bureaucracy,
inmensa mayoría
which is
es a
enormous,
través de la
elephantine,
burocracia.
and
Su
million
burocracia
dollar.
es
But
enorme,
as far as the UN, the
elefantiásica
countries
y
themselves,
millonaria.
there is this natural
Pero en
barrier.
cuanto a la ONU, los países en sí,
Regardless
existe
of
esta
what
barrera
we
natural,
might think
independientemente
of
de lo que
these
podamos
three
pensar de
blocks,
estos tres bloques,
so to
por
speak,
así
it's a
llamarlo,
natural
es una
barrier,
barrera
and not
natural
much has
y
happened
no han
for this
pasado
reason.
tantas
The lobbies
cosas
knew
por esta
this
razón.
before we did. They realized
Los
it,
lobbies
and they have
saben
moved to
esto
Washington
desde
DC
antes que
because
nosotros.
the
Se
OAS
dieron
is
cuenta,
here, and the
se han
OAS
mudado a
is like the
Washington
UN,
DC porque acá está
but
la OEA.
the
La
entire
OEA es como
America
la ONU,
continent
pero para todo el
inside of it.
continente americano.
Agustin,
Ahí
there
está.
it is. OAS is the Organization of American States, and practically all the states of America are within it. Sebastian, all the states of America from Canada to Argentina and Chile, including the entire Caribbean, are 35 states, and there is no natural political barrier, and there they have managed to advise what they have not been able to do in the UN system. For that reason, we are here in Washington DC. Agustin says, apart from Sebastian, sorry, but I suppose that not all the countries will weigh the same politically. That is, for example, Canada would weigh more than, I don't know, Guatemala, for example, or the United States would weigh more than Uruguay. Or is it real that there are an equity within the organism where each state has equal weight in the decisions? Sebastian, well, the political power that each country has is different. And of course, that is expressed in their actions, like those international organizations, at the moment of consensus, bar votes, they have the same. But of course, well, Canada is an excellent example, because, well, I don't want to get technical, but it is not involved in almost any of these things that we're going to name, but it finances for us to be there, for Argentina. Paradoxical, more than paradoxical, it is emblematic, a form of political control. No? Of course. Later I want to name some specific things about Canada, but the second reason why we are in Washington DC is because, unlike the United Nations, the OAS has teeth. The OAS system has real teeth that there are no other organizations. Those teeth are the CIH, the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, here in Washington, and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, which is in San Jose, Costa Rica. But it prevails over 20 Latin American countries from Mexico to Argentina. So why does he have teeth? Because what they decide, what that system decides, is mandatory for our countries. Well, guys, this video is getting a bit long, so we'll continue in the next one. See you later.